Welcome to Survive in Advance on the Grizzly 2 Sports Network. I'm your co-host for Survive in Advance, Mike Goodpaster. Right now, I want to welcome in my co-host, a member of the 1981 national champion Indiana Hoosiers, and a member of the Indiana Basketball Hall of Fame, Steve Risley. How you doing, Steve?
My Colts are still in the playoffs, so I'm a very happy camper right now.
All right. Well, my other thing is this. When you're doing a radio show, you probably don't want to start your sentence off with Next up, we have a couple special guests here. First up, we've got the defensive coordinator of the Carolina Cobras, the NAL champions, Brian Schmidt. How you doing, Brian?
I was good, and you read that exactly how I wrote it for you. That's great.
I didn't, because if you heard how slowly I did it, I was trying to remember all the particulars.
Brian, does that well.
I drew pictures for him. I figured it'd be better. So.
Now,
he just goes on his website. He just goes on his website and reads his own writings, and he just does like a teleprompter to himself.
Yeah, but the thing is this. The thing is this. I wrote a preview. I wrote a preview for this game, Brian, but I haven't posted it yet because I wanted to wait till after the show. Because the last time I wrote a preview for these games, he read what I wrote verbatim as his prediction. So.
Who, me?
Yeah, you.
Well,
you.
I'm not stupid. What?
All right. So that just shows I'm smarter than you. All right, next up, I introduced two people that, did some stuff. But the next guy, and the reason we had him on is because Risley always wants to know how many championship rings somebody has. And Risley has one, and he'll remind you by sending you a picture once a week. But the man we have today, I believe, won 2 national championship rings, which is twice as many as Steve Risley. He played for Bear Bryant's Alabama Crimson Tide, 1980-81 national champions, was it, Bill? Help me welcome to the show. Bill Searcy, 79 and 80. Okay, 78 79. All right. So, yeah, he's got 2 national championship rings.
Hey, Mike,
plus.
Mike,
he
can
wrote
I say one
wait
thing
a second.
about that?
I'm trying to plug his book.
Let me say one thing.
I'm trying to make Bill some money. Jeez. All right.
Bill and I can get in the door because we have at least one ring.
No, I don't want to hear that now because Bill can get in the door twice as fast as you can.
That's right, yeah, but I'm still getting in the door.
Plus, no, you're not, because
I bow to him.
You'll get into a door of like a gay club or something because you've only got one. I mean, and Ed Biles was on the show, Bill. Ed Biles was on the show, Bill. You remember Ed Biles, the defensive coordinator for the Oilers head coach? And he said that Risley's obviously a sissy because he played a game with shorts and a tank top. And now Risley's going to go ahead and tell you how he was a All-American quarterback at Lawrence Central, which has never been verified because they don't keep records that far back in the past.
I'm glad to see the show has not changed at all since I was on the last time. No. All he does is come on and piss everybody off and stir it all up.
Yeah, right? The worst part is we've gotten to know more about each other, so it just goes, it's worse now because now we know more crap about each other.
That's right. It gets deeper the more he knows about you. Yep.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah. All right.
Well, let's talk Alabama and Clemson.
Are you running the show? Go ahead then.
No, I'm done. I'm here for moral support. I got 3 geniuses I'm listening to. I'm just going to just yuck in every once in a while.
You're still going to continue to talk and just continue to talk, aren't you?
Yeah.
Okay. Tomorrow night, college football season is down to its final game as Alabama and Clemson square off on Monday night in Santa Clara for the national championship. Biggest stage in college football. Let's look at it like this first. Before we get to the game, let's look at the Final Four. And we look at Notre Dame, a team near and dear to Risley's heart. Brian, did Notre Dame prove that they didn't belong?
Are you asking me?
I can answer that. I don't think they belong.
No, Steve. Your name's Steve. Brian is Brian. Go ahead, Brian.
I don't think they belong. I didn't feel that way when they were coming into it. They certainly didn't change my opinion the way they played. But again, now you come back to the problem of, okay, well, who do you put in their place that would have done any better? You can make a case for different teams, but at the end of the day, there were teams that played themselves out. But I didn't feel that Notre Dame was a top 4 team, and they certainly didn't give me that feeling after the way they played.
All right, so my question, Bill, is what's your take on Notre Dame? And if you don't think they should have been, who should have, or should just be an 8-team tournament at least?
Well, I mean, I went to the SEC championship game and saw Alabama and Georgia play, and at the time, right after the game, I said I thought I'd just seen the best 2 teams in the country. And before Georgia played again, I thought that Georgia probably was the 4th team, even though they had gotten beat by Alabama again in the championship game. But after Georgia played later on, then I'm not really sure, but I don't think it should have been Notre Dame. I didn't, that's twice now Notre Dame has had an opportunity in the last few years and just have dropped an egg the last 2 times. And I don't know when they're going to be ready or if they're going to be ready, but it wasn't this year. And I really don't know who I would have replaced Notre Dame with, other than, like I said early on, I would have thought it was Georgia. But, I I have my own ideas about Clemson, too, that we'll talk about in a minute. But I don't know who I would replace it with, Mike,
well,
other than Georgia.
I think the problem is, Steve, when you look at this, I think it's hard to say Georgia doesn't belong because they lost a meaningless bowl game. And when you get as close to getting in as they did and you don't get in, I don't think that you could really hold the game, 3 or 4 weeks later that it played with nothing on the line against them either.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll just tell you from a business perspective, here's what I think. I think that there's 2 ways Notre Dame, you have to look at it. Monetarily, to the CFP or the NCAA, Notre Dame belonged in there because they're a draw. It's Notre Dame.
I don't think they are anymore. I think they hurt things.
I think they still are a draw. I think people, they have their own television package. They're the only college that has their own television package. They're a draw. Talent-wise, they didn't belong in the Final Four. But to me, it just signals that what they need to do is expand the tournament to 8 teams, go with the Power 5 conferences, then 3 at-large bids, take the meaningless bowl games and make them playoff games, play-in games, and then end up in Pasadena, which is 20 minutes from my house, which I could go to and watch and get media credentials from the Grueling Truth.
Yeah, but you won't because you're too lazy. You're going to lay in your couch at the nursing home, and you're never going to go. You know you're not.
But no, I think in one way Notre Dame belongs in because you have to understand they're selling TV advertising, and so in that way they belong in.
That TV advertising sold no matter who's in there, and I don't think. Correct me if I'm wrong. Anybody could jump in, but I think anymore Notre Dame being in a game like that hurts the ratings because it's not considered competitive by most people. I mean, Notre Dame still has a big fan base, but Notre Dame's fan base is not Alabama. It's not Ohio State. Hell, it's probably not Clemson anymore because they don't win. I mean, the last Notre Dame national championship team was what, 1988 or 89?
Like they were 12-0 going into the game in the tournament.
Good for them. What's that mean? UCF was 12-0, and I still think from watching UCF in their game against LSU that they would have beat Notre Dame with their backup quarterback.
I agree.
All right.
Mike,
so Good, Bill.
And I don't want to.
I don't
want to turn this show into I don't want to turn the show into a Notre Dame conversation, but I do have a question that I think I do have a question that I would love, especially Steve. I know being a Notre Dame guy, is Notre Dame being hurt by not being in a conference? Because I really feel like the independent status is absolutely now to a point that I think it's hurting them.
And that's a great question, and I'm not sure I'm smart enough to answer that because I see both sides of the fence. First off, economically, the impact of them being able to absorb all the money that they make from their own TV package and not being a conference, but are they getting the opponents they need? But are they that good of a team? I think game-wise, we've seen them the last 2 or 3 years. They're not worthy, really, of being in that elite group with Alabama, with Clemson, with the elite teams, Georgia, the SEC. They're not there.
So the question is, would it be easier to get there if they were in an ACC?
No, I think they would lose. They wouldn't get there.
But don't you think that if they're playing better competition, if they ever get a team that is capable of being there, then at least they would be prepared to play in that game?
Possibly.
And
let's not make this a Notre Dame show. Let's go on to
real quick,
Clemson and Alabama.
It's a college football show. We're getting to it. But also, you got to remember, in 1980, teams like Penn State were independents. So you could have a big-time schedule being an independent. All right, let's get off that. Bill, were you going to say something earlier?
No, I was going to agree with something you said a while ago that I had thought of but didn't say anything about it, was that I don't think you should have penalized Georgia after the fact. Like you said, after they had already lost the conference, after they knew they weren't going to be in the Final Four, they go and, stink it up in a bowl game. And that's not the same Georgia that played all year long, and I don't think it's the same Georgia that played in the SEC championship. And, obviously I'm way biased on the SEC, but I think if Notre Dame plays in the SEC, they're a 500 team this year. And, Georgia played in the SEC and had a good year. Obviously, we know Alabama did. And I just don't think Notre Dame plays a schedule, although they were, had a good year.
I think it's a stretch to say they're a 500 team, though, in the SEC, Bill.
In the SEC, they're not going to. I don't believe they would be.
I think they're an 8-4 team if they're in the SEC.
Okay, fair enough.
I think they're more of a Kentucky. I think they're on the Kentucky level, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, fair enough. That's fair.
Hey, Bill, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
With four teams, does it become more of a media event? With 8 teams, it becomes more of a tournament.
I like the 8-team idea.
Yeah, with 4 teams, you pick the 4 people that are going to put people in the stands that are going to get the advertising. With 8 teams, now you've got to go play. Now you've got to go win a couple games, and you've got to gut it out a couple times. And, so am I right or wrong there? That 4 teams I think is a media event. 8 teams is a tournament.
I agree. I'm all for 8 teams. I'm not against it at all, because it only solidifies whoever ends up winning the thing. Then there's less questions. There's never not going to be any question, but there's less question if we got 8.
Well, how about this? For no questions. What about 32 teams and no bowl games?
I knew exactly what you were going to say before you said it.
Yeah, because these bowl games are outright a joke. It was proven. The NCAA admitted that when Boston College and Boise State don't even play their game because of weather, they don't reschedule it. The game is meaningless. These games are meaningless. You're not playing. You're playing for some fake BS trophy between 2 teams that 8,000 people are going to show up to watch. Why not just take 32 teams, start the tournament the 1st of December? You're still done New Year's Eve. You can play the championship game New Year's Eve weekend. Why not do that? And I think when you do that and you bring the Central Floridas and the Boise States in, you're going to get an upset here or there. It's going to blow the tournament up bigger than what March Madness is.
I don't really have a comment. I'm for 8 teams. I'm not for 32.
All right, Brian, I'll listen to what you say, because I think you're more likely to agree with me.
I have said from the beginning, I would love 32 teams. I would be happy with 8. I think the ideal number is 16, because that gives you every conference champion plus some at-large. But we've had this conversation about bowl games too. I just feel like they've taken bowl games and that the meaning of them is gone now, and it's great for the players, and that's awesome. But I would love to see at least 16 teams. I would love to see all the conference champions. Then you have the at-large. Whether you want to do neutral site, or my thing has always been that first round is at the highest seed home field, and then you get into the 8 to where then you can do neutral site or do neutral site. But I've always felt like 16 is the real ideal number. And I don't think we'll ever see it in our lifetime, but I'd love to.
All right, so let's go ahead and let's talk about Alabama and Clemson. I think a lot of people think this game is a mismatch. So I just want a one-word answer from each one of you. Is this a mismatch? Bill?
No, I don't think so.
Brian?
No, it's not.
Steve?
No.
All right, so we have a game. This is my question. I'm going to start off with Bill here because when I look at this, Alabama, this is not your typical Alabama. This is more of a spread team with Tua Tagovailoa, whatever the hell his name is. I really think that they should just change his name to Tua Tag so I can pronounce it better. But with Tua, this is more of a spread offense with Alabama. They still run the ball. They got 3 or 4 guys that are still good ball carriers. You got the Jacobs kid who can catch the ball out of the backfield. But when I look at this team, I think they have to win the game throwing the ball. And the thing that sticks out to me here is I don't think the Alabama offensive line is as good as it's been the last few years, Bill. Am I wrong here?
I agree with you.
Okay.
No, I agree with you. Let me say this to you. I had the benefit of going to Clemson this summer and watching Clemson scrimmage at the very end of their summer camp, and got to watch them against each other. And I mean, they've got a good football team, but you're right. I don't think Alabama's offensive line as a whole is as good as they have been. Alabama's a left-handed team primarily because the left side of the line has been the best. Be honest with you, even though we got 4 or 5 great running backs, and we do have a running game at times, our offensive line does not do a great job of knocking people off the ball and creating lanes, which our backs are just able to do what they do a lot of times on their own. But with Tua, and here's the difference, I think. With Tua, he can do some things that I don't think Clemson's ever seen before with the ball. And Clemson's defensive line is what everybody has talked about. Talked about 4 guys in the first round, and we know they're missing one of them. They still got a great defensive line. But I think the second and third level of Clemson's defense is not near as strong as their front line, and I think Tua is going to take advantage of that. Now he's got to get rid of the ball quickly because I think Clemson's pass rush will be a factor. But their second and third level have not seen what Tua is capable of, and I don't think they've seen the types of receivers that Alabama's got this year, which is just unheard of. I mean, we're not used to seeing what they've got this year here in our own state. So, I think the key is Tua being able to throw the ball and having enough time, and I just think Clemson's not seen anything like they're going to see offensively from Alabama.
Yeah, but I also think Alabama hasn't seen what they're going to see from Clemson, which is that defensive line. And I think Kendall Joseph and Trey Lamar are both outstanding linebackers. I think the weakness of both of these defenses, Alabama and Clemson, is the secondary. And they're not huge glaring weaknesses, but the front sevens are so good. So I think the key to every game, I think, is the offensive and defensive line. And that's why I think this game's so competitive, because I think Clemson's better on both sides of the ball there. But you've got Tua. And the wide receivers, Brian, that Alabama has, starting with Judy, they've got 4 or 5 guys, Devonta Smith, the tight end, Irv Smith. I mean, they've got a ton of weapons for Tua to throw the ball to, too, also.
Yeah, I mean, they've got people to throw the football to. Tua, makes plays. One of the interesting things about this game, to me, when I look at it, is something I didn't realize until I saw this earlier, and that's Alabama has only trailed less than 36 minutes all year. And to me, the real key is I think Clemson has to jump out quick. I think you got to make Alabama kicks. That to me is a real key, and because I think when you can allow Alabama to do it, to sit there and pick these receivers and do what he wants to do, throwing the football. They get the running game going. When they can get out to a lead and then control the game, they're very good. I would like to see,
a little bit more, especially against the Clemson with that really good defensive line. What happens when Alabama has to change? And now Clemson and defensive line can pin their ears back and put pressure on. That, to me, I think is a real key.
Yeah, and Bill, the other question I have here is this.
Yeah.
If I'm Clemson, I'm just trying to get pressure with the front four and drop 7 into coverage, because I think those front four can get that right there. The question is, if they play like that, does Alabama's offensive line possess enough talent there to be able to run the ball if Alabama or if Clemson does play that way? Because to me, if Clemson plays that way, those front four guys are studs. And even if you want to throw the ball quickly, that's a lot harder to do if you only have to rush 4 and you got 7 in coverage. It's hard to beat them no matter what you do. No,
you're right. I mean, I agree with you. And like I said, my opinion leans heavily on what Tua can do. And I've just seen what he's done this year and watched him and how he reads defenses, and he seems to go to the right place almost every time, and he's just good at it. But look, if that front four, we don't block those guys, and against Oklahoma, I sat and watched our offensive line miss assignments, let guys go free. You're not going to be able to do that against Clemson, and so your key for Clemson's defense is the front four, and we just have to see. I mean, Tua's been able to work some magic other times when he's been scrambling around. I think there's going to be some of that, and if Alabama, like they did at Oklahoma, the key for Alabama is getting those points, jumping up ahead quickly if possible, and then making the other team catch up. And if they hadn't done it against Oklahoma, that would have been a different game, obviously. So I don't totally disagree with you, Mike. I think it's going to be a close game. That's why I say it's not. Yeah, I don't think it's lopsided at all.
Mike, can I interject on some things here? First off, Clemson 52 sacks, led the nation in sacks. Okay, and I think Bill, you made a comment that Tua is going to have to get rid of the ball quickly. Is that something he's had to do all year, or is he pretty much sat back in that pocket and had time to do what he wants to do with his magical arm or his great receivers?
Yeah.
But has he faced this kind of defensive line, and they've got Farrell, who 11 and a half sacks he's led out of 52.
Oh, yeah.
So is he? My question is that, first off, is he going to be able to adapt to that? And secondly, who flinches first? Does Clemson have to flinch first, or is Alabama going to have to change? Because this is the best defensive line they're going to face. And you're telling me Tua is great, but he's had a lot of time to sit back in that pocket and throw and do what he wants to do. He's not going to get that tomorrow night.
Yeah. Well,
we'll
see. We'll see. But you're right. He hasn't had to throw the ball quick. He hasn't had to make changes like that very often. But here's what I'm banking on. And we go back to the leagues the two teams play in. I just believe enough that he's been against SEC competition all year long, SEC defenses all year long. Has he played against a defensive line as good as what he's going to play against tomorrow night? Man, I don't know. Because I don't know if Clemson's played against as good a team as they're going to play tomorrow night.
I don't think either one of these teams have played against a team near as good as what they're going to play tomorrow night, Bill. SEC or no SEC.
Maybe so.
Right.
But that's why I said I think it's a game that's a touchdown 7-8 point game either way, depending on how. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
So let me go back to my second part of the question: is who adjusts first? Does Alabama adjust to give Tua more time, or does Clemson adjust to put more pressure on him? I mean, who makes the first? I'm now not in control of the game between the line. That's my question.
Yeah, and I don't have an answer for your question. I don't have a clue other than we hope that Alabama can establish some kind of running game, and like they did a little bit of the other night, but. I don't know. I don't know that they have played a defensive line as good as Clemson yet. And so I think we're going to find out pretty quickly. But if Alabama can establish any kind of running game and slow that defensive line down, I think it's a different game.
Yeah,
just my opinion.
We could talk about they haven't played a defensive line like that, but Brian, I think there's also a case to be made that Clemson has not seen a quarterback like Tua.
Exactly.
there's a big difference sometimes, and I think when you listen to the quote-unquote experts, they talk. You talk about how what Alabama has played. You talk about Clemson played. I mean, to me, these are the two best teams in college football right now, and they both have tremendous strength. Quarterback play at Alabama, the defensive line at Clemson. With one of those strengths is going to be bigger and better. To me, I think the biggest key in my mind is if Clemson can get pressure with that front four without having to blitz, I think that's going to give to a problem. However, if they're not getting pressure, if we need to be able to get back there and pick them apart, now this turns this game into what I think it's going to be a little bit. I think it's going to be somewhat of a high-scoring game. I really believe that. I think these are two very good offenses. Yes, the defenses are good defenses, but I think these offenses are very good. And I think what it's going to come down to is can Clemson get enough consistent pressure onto it to change the game. To me, if there was one key, to me that's the biggest key to it.
All right, and another thing, and whoever wants to answer this can answer this, but I think usually championship games, most football games are decided by explosive plays. That defensive line plays into it for Clemson trying to limit Alabama. But also, you got Trevor Lawrence who can get the ball down the field from Clemson. But, Bill, Trevor Lawrence is a freshman. He's never faced a defense like Alabama. I thought he looked a little shaky in the first half against Notre Dame. What's your take on Trevor Lawrence?
I mean, great young quarterback, but he's not been in a national championship game yet, and he hasn't faced a defense like Alabama. But let me, in fairness to Clemson and Trevor Lawrence, I was going to make this comment before you asked this question, is one of my concerns has been from time to time during the year this year is Alabama's depth on defense. And Alabama's defensive line during that Oklahoma game last week got gassed at one point. And we don't have a whole lot behind the front guys. And people have caused us problems during this year throwing those mid-range passes, into the linebackers. And then we got linebackers covering wide, trying to cover wide receivers. And you said it earlier, Mike, about our secondary. Although they've made some big plays, and, obviously they're an undefeated team, but they've been suspect at times too. So, I think a lot of it depends on our defensive line and our rush, just like Clemson's rush, and putting pressure on Trevor Lawrence. If you let those guys get cranked up and get coming, you have a problem. But I worry more about the secondary and my second and third level also more than I do my line.
Well, see, and the other thing I worry about is this. We've talked about Clemson's defensive line, but if there's any defensive line that's close to Clemson, it's Alabama. Because nose guard Quinnen Williams, if I was starting an NFL team, you could tell me I could have anybody off of either team, I might take that kid, because that kid has been unblockable for most of the season, and he's the kind of kid that can shut down ATN running the ball, force Lawrence to have to throw it, and then it's going to be, can you block the rest of those guys with Clemson's offensive line? And I know that we've said that their offensive line is probably better than it's been the last 5 years even, but is it good enough to block these guys? Because Quinnen Williams is a big nose guard that I don't know if I've seen too many nose guards in college football with the ability to use their hands and move their feet the way he can, Bill.
You have to double team, and obviously that creates some problems, and you're not going to block him one-on-one. And I mean, he's got to be double teamed, and he's been doing it all year. And I agree with you. He's one of the best. Last year, Deron Payne that was Alabama was also like that. But Quinnen Williams,
this kid's better than Deron Payne, I think.
Yeah. No, you're right. He's been somewhat of a surprise. Everybody knew he was good, but he dominates on the line. And so, if you let him take control and you have to double team that guy, and that means somebody else is running free, then you got a problem. So our defensive line's good. I don't know about our second, third level, how they match up against Trevor Lawrence and in his passing game, but I'm counting on him being a young guy who hadn't been in this kind of a situation before in a national championship game, and hopefully, we can cause him some problems early and get him shook up.
All right, and when I look at this game then, Brian, if I'm coaching this game and I've watched Alabama this year, I'd come out no huddle against them and just try to wear them out. You don't even have to come up and snap the ball quickly. Just make sure they get in their stances and make sure that they're alert, which is going to wear them down.
Yeah, I mean, I always think that's a great game plan against a lot of teams. But to me, you know, that when you do that, and especially you got to remember, you've got a freshman quarterback. Granted, by this point, it's hard to call him freshman, but the lights are the brightest on Monday. And with guys, you sometimes don't know how they're going to handle that. So throwing no huddle being a great game plan. But if this young kid, if the lights get too bright, now that this could turn into kind of like what we saw against Oklahoma, where it's 34-0 before you blink. So they've got to go in with the mindset of what's going to be best for this young kid to be able to be able to put a game plan together that fits him best and fits what they're trying to do best. So if he can come out in no huddle and he does it well, I think that's a great way to go. But it's hard with young kids like that, especially on the grandest stage of them all.
Yeah, because as a coach, you don't know how your guy's going to respond there until he actually gets a chance to do it.
Nope.
And my concern, Steve, is this. His hair is awful long. Do you think maybe they should make him cut it before the
game? I have a 24-year-old son, and, I had to learn the value of, I used to tell him if he ever came home with a pierced ear, I have a pair of needle nose pliers that I would just yank it out. And if he ever came home with a tattoo, I would just get my Brillo pad out and rub it off. It's a different thing. So the hair thing, it's their culture. I don't care about that. But I do think the key to this game.
Wait a second, though. Did your
Lawrence.
son ever come home with an earring?
No.
I just wanted to see what would have happened.
And no tattoo either.
Okay.
Scared to death of me, which he should be.
You know what? I'd be more all right with a tattoo than an earring. It might just be my age.
Yeah, I'm not okay with either one of them. But that's my culture, not his culture. So anyway, I think the key here is Trevor Lawrence. We just don't know. And Bill, you've obviously played in national championship games. And I have played in national championship games.
Oh,
the landscape
He's played in
gets
two,
little.
Though. Bill's played in two. Go
Yes,
ahead.
no, I know. The landscape gets a little different, and the pressure gets a little more intense. And I was impressed with him against Notre Dame, but I think they were dominating Notre Dame by the time I got impressed with him because he wasn't very good in the first half. The second half, he really came through. By that time, Notre Dame was pretty well defeated. I think he's the key to this game because I think everything else is a wash. I think the strength and power of Alabama's offensive line, the strength and power of Clemson's defensive line. You got the running back. What is it, NTN? I keep wanting to say NTN. Is that his name?
Yeah.
NTN, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he's a big play rate player because Notre Dame pretty well had him in check. Then he takes off for a 62-yard run and blows the game open. You got to watch that. But I think Lawrence, to me, Lawrence and his long hair is the key to this football game. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I think there's no doubt because we already know Tua can perform on the biggest stage.
Right.
But,
right.
But, Bill, there is a difference between coming in a game halfway through and knowing you're going to be the starter in that game. Do you think that could be a difference? I don't think it is with this kid. I think this kid's special. I think he looks like an NFL quarterback to me.
You're talking about Trevor Lawrence, obviously.
No, I'm talking about Tua.
Oh, Tua, yeah. No,
yeah, because Tua last year,
I
it's a lot different knowing for a month you're going to start the national championship game or the Final Four than it is to be just all of a sudden at halftime, Coach Saban comes up, puts you in, you come out, you do some great things. There's really not a lot to lose for you there. But now there is. No. So I think there's a little bit more pressure on Tua than what we saw last year, too. So I think that'll be interesting to see how he responds.
Yeah, I think he'll respond positively. I don't worry about him at all. He's not shown – I mean, he did not play a good game against Georgia in that first half, but he's shown that really pressure doesn't seem to really affect him, or either he hides it really well, and he seems to thrive on – he makes the big plays under pressure. So I don't think this game to him, I'm not concerned about him, but I do think what you both said a while ago about Trevor Lawrence being the key. Alabama's got to get this guy in check and get him behind the 8 ball quickly because the kid's got lots of talent. He started being recruited by Alabama. Trevor Lawrence did when he was about 8th grade. And he's a great football player, but he just hadn't been where he's going to be tomorrow night yet. And that may be the defining factor.
Yeah, so I think what we get is this. In the end, I think we get a Trevor Lawrence, Brian, that comes out and just sets it on fire, wins the national championship, becomes the MVP, or we get a Trevor Lawrence that is not the same in the big game, and Alabama takes care of them, Brian.
Yeah, I mean...
And I'm still trying to figure out which way it'll be.
A lot of different scenarios, or he comes out and plays great, Tua comes out and plays great, and this thing turns into a shootout. I mean, there's so many different ways it can go. But
yeah,
at the end of the day, there's so many different variables in this. I mean, just I've seen so many people talk about Alabama's going to blow them out. I can't get behind that. I just think this is going to be a really good football game.
Yeah, and I don't think we're going to see a blowout either way. Steve, any thoughts before we wrap it up?
It's really funny that you just said that, and I'm going to interject because I love talking about myself real quickly. A really funny story.
Yeah, we know.
I had been in the doghouse for 3 games at IU, had not played, and we were playing for the Big Ten Championship in 1980 against Ohio State, and Clark Kellogg had just come off an 80-point game.
Guys, just a little warning. I know, but I was going to warn him, but go ahead. You throw a pass.
But the story was that I had no intention of playing. I ate all my pregame meal. I never eat pregame meal. And I thought, I'm never going to play again at IU. I'm done. He's so pissed at me right now. I'm done, and he ends up starting me in the game. But it was the whole thing of what Bill was saying was that as a freshman, you don't understand the pressure that's on you. And like the Tua coming in last year in the middle of the game and taking over, there's no pressure. It's a different concept right now. So I get that because I ended up shutting Kellogg down and held him to 8 points. And, it was the second or third best game I ever played in my life at IU. And I went back to total mediocrity, which I lived in. But I get that point entirely. So I see what you're saying. He's got pressure on him this year to perform. Last year he didn't. It's going to be interesting to see. But I think this comes down to a battle. I think everything else is a wash. It comes down to a battle of which of the 2 quarterbacks performs better.
All right. You do know that I have Google, and right now I'm Googling this game to see if you held Clark Kellogg to 8 points.
God. Hey, I think it could be a high-scoring game, but I still think it's going to be decided by a touchdown. I think both quarterbacks have the ability, if they're playing well, to put a lot of points on the board. And I think it's going to be, and I know a lot of people down here will disagree with me. They think it's going to be a 3-touchdown game. Clemson's too well coached. They got too many good athletes. And I think it's going to be a close game, even though it may be a high-scoring game. I think it'll be decided by a touchdown.
Well, I think this. I think whenever you have a Dabo Swinney coach team and a Nick Saban coach team, there's very few times. You may beat them. Very few times you're going to blow them out.
Right. I agree with you, Mike.
Because I think when you look at this, I think there's no doubt 2 best coaching staffs in football are Alabama and Clemson, and that's why we've seen this for the last 5 years.
Yep.
Now, my question is this.
Go
ahead.
I was going to say, and we said this a couple of years ago. I know all 3 of us, doing our college football show, going to the national championship game. I mean, we said the exact same thing. I mean, these are 2 of the best coach teams, 2 of the best coaches. And it's funny that we here we are, a few years later, we're still saying the same thing. I think Dabo Swinney. Yeah, I mean, Swinney has shown just how good of a coach he is, and Nick Saban. I mean, he's done it every year. it's just here we are. I mean, again, people keep talking about, Clemson and Alabama are, playing a championship game again. Oh, when is there going to be somebody else? Well, you know what? Somebody else needs to step up because these two teams are not going away anytime soon.
And you know what's amazing to me, guys, and I don't know if you'll agree with this or not, but both of these coaches get, we hear this down here, well, he gets 4-star and 5. Yeah, he gets 4- and 5-star guys. Both these coaches do. But they take those 4- and 5-star guys and still coach them up. They still take them to another level that other people don't. And so, Georgia gets 4- and 5-star guys. Auburn gets 4- and 5-star guys. But I think Dabo Swinney and Saban have their own methods, but they're able to take the guys that are best high school players and make them unbelievable players once they get to Alabama or get to Clemson. And I think that's why we keep seeing Alabama and Clemson play each other.
And here's the one thing, too, that I'll add to that is, yes, they get the 4 or 5 stars and they coach them up, but you look at the guys that have been in their program that were 3-star guys that are now playing at a high level. That's, to me, the key is what they do with the guys that come in. Maybe they redshirt them, maybe they don't play as freshmen, but they built these guys up, and not only just from a football standpoint, technique, everything, but also in the weight room. They do all the right things. So now these guys are turning into, sophomore and juniors, and these guys are, they're Alabama, Clemson ready to go along with the guys that are the stars.
And Alabama goes and finds a Josh Jacobs that nobody, that Oklahoma didn't offer. So.
Well, I'm going to tell you what, the Colts will not give up Ryan Kelly for anything in the world. I mean, he may be the best center in the league right now if he stays healthy. He's making Andrew Luck look very good, and he's anchoring that line that all of a sudden has gotten real strong. And he's the anchor of that offensive line. He is.
He's doing a good job, isn't he?
There's your story right there. I mean, that line performs when he's playing, and that's an Alabama grad right there, an Alabama trained player.
Yeah, the best lineman is from Notre Dame.
Yeah.
Quentin Nelson. Quentin Nelson's as good a guard as I've seen since John Hanna.
Yeah, well. But I still say Ryan Kelly is the captain of that offensive line. So.
All right, Mr. Risley. Who you got in this game?
Are you asking me?
Is there somebody else named Risley?
Okay, I got Notre. I've got Notre.
You got Notre Dame?
No.
Hey, last week, guys.
Alabama.
Hold on. Last week, before we get to your pick, week, Steve picked Notre Dame, and then he said that if he lost, he would sing the Notre Dame fight song on air. So go back and listen to Monday's show, and you can hear Risley sing.
Yeah, I did. I lost. I've got Alabama walking away with this one.
Walking away.
I just think they're too powerful and too strong, top to bottom. I just think Nick Saban gets it. He's been there, done that so many times. I know Dabo Swinney's been in there, but he's not won as many times as Nick. And I just think that program, having played for Bob Knight for 4 years, I understand the power of having a great coach in your camp and what those coaches, why they become great coaches and why they become considered the best college coach of all time, which I don't know that he is or not. I'm not going to make that, but I think Alabama walks away with this game.
By walk away, what do you think the score will be?
I think it'll be 2 touchdowns.
All right, so if Alabama doesn't win by 2 touchdowns, you'll say
no. I'm not making more bets. Move on. Ask everybody else. No.
All right.
I just think Nick Saban is just too strong of a coach, and I just think that program, top to bottom, is what good looks like, and Clemson is what good looks like, kind of a little bit less than what Alabama looks like.
All right,
and the quarterback for Clemson, I just don't have a lot of confidence in a freshman quarterback can withstand the pressure Alabama's going to put on him. My opinion. I'm an idiot.
Is your opinion done yet?
Yeah, I'm done.
All right. Brian.
He's brutal. I'm going to take I'm going to take Alabama, but it's going to be, to me, a lot closer game. I think so much is going to really be dependent upon A, how a freshman quarterback plays, B, how the defensive line for Clemson plays. I think Alabama is going to win this game. I think it's going to be a good, somewhat high-scoring game. I'm gonna say 31-27 Alabama.
All right, Bill.
I think it's I say it's going to be a 7 to 10 point game. I don't know. It's so many ifs, ands, and buts. I just think Alabama's been there so many times. Nick Saban's been there so many times, and Dabo's a great coach. But I have a lot of confidence in our quarterback. He's a cool customer, man, under pressure, I'm telling you. He can put the ball where some other guys can't. So I got to take Alabama, that by 7. I'm going to say 7 to 10 points.
The last time we made a pick like this, everybody picked Alabama. I picked Clemson. I was right.
Yeah. You were right.
Unfortunately, Deshaun Watson's now a Houston Texan. I think this, and I've been saying this all year. Risley can tell you this. I've thought all year Clemson was the best team. But with that being said, I don't know what Trevor Lawrence is going to do in this situation.
Right.
But I think this.
Yeah, no.
I think Clemson's better than Georgia. I think Georgia comes up short when you compare Georgia to Clemson and Alabama. The difference is just one thing. It has nothing to do with players. It's the head coach. And I don't think you'll see Dabo Swinney fake a punt and run the ball up the middle on 4th and 9. I don't think you'll see Dabo Swinney in overtime decide to basically run the ball and kick a field goal and hope you could hold Alabama to a field goal.
Yeah.
Now, I think what you're going to have is you're going to have two coaches that are kind of like a Bill Belichick, Doug Peterson guy. They're both going to go out, and they're going to attempt to win the game. And that's why I like this game. I think it's a complete toss-up. I'm going to go with Dabo Swinney, number one, because everybody else picked Alabama, so what the hell. It'll make the show more interesting. What do you got to lose? But I also think this. I think Clemson's got some special players on the D-line. I think Alabama does too. I think Clemson's a little better on the D-line. On the O-line, I think Clemson's a little bit better on the O-line. To me, football games are won in the trenches. Clemson's better in the trenches. So as long as that kid with the long hair doesn't screw it up, I think Clemson wins the game 30-27. But if he poops his pants, Alabama blows him out, and we won't even talk about it again. How about that?
Fair enough.
So my take, Bill, quick question. Because I see people, and you played for Bear Bryant, and I saw people last week saying that Nick Saban's a better coach than Bear Bryant. You played for Bryant. You've watched Saban. What's your take on that?
I think Coach Saban now is probably the best college coach that's ever coached a game. It's a different game now than it was then. He's had to. I think Saban's had to make a lot of adjustments in his own coaching to take care of the kids of today, and he just does it consistently, man. I mean, nobody's done it more consistently than he has, and it just keeps going and going and going and going. And I live in Alabama. I'm an Alabama fan. I'm an Alabama alumni. And, I'd love to see it keep going forever. I know it's not going to. But he just seems to keep getting better and better and better. And, even under Coach Bryant, Alabama had some years when they weren't top of the heap. So I think Coach Saban has done it better than anyone else. And if he wins another championship or two, there'll be no doubt about it. So
I will give Bear Bryant this. There are 4 or 5 years there where Alabama didn't win a national championship. But if you had a college playoff, they'd have had a chance to, where they don't now.
It was a different time.
Yeah, but I do agree with you. I don't know that we've ever seen a coach dominate collegiate sports the way he has, and people don't remember that when Bear Bryant left in 1982, except for a few years there in the early 90s under, Gene Stallings, where they won a national championship in 92 or 93. Yep. Other than that, yep. They were a program that was losing games at home to Southern Miss and Central Florida. And we're not talking about the Central Florida today. We're talking about a Central Florida back then that nobody had even heard of. So he took the program from being, they were probably, consistently middle of the SEC to dominating the SEC in just a couple years.
Well, here's the thing, too, and once again, I'm close because I'm here. I'm in Alabama, and I go to practice occasionally. And when you see the machine that has been created in Tuscaloosa, I just go down there, and I'm in awe of the thing because there's literally no wasted motion in anything he does or they do. It's all geared towards tomorrow's game, the national championship, every year. So, once again, I'm very biased, you know that, but I'm just impressed by it, and I do think he's the best coach that ever coached football.
I don't know about ever coached football. Come on. Bill
College
Belichick is the greatest coach.
College football.
And remember this.
College football. Wait.
His first defensive coordinator job was under Bill Belichick, too, and I don't think that's something that I don't think many people pay attention to, but Nick Saban was a Belichick disciple.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good, Steve.
Can I ask
Sorry
a question?
about that. You can do whatever
Bill,
you want.
I've been flying all around now with 9 NFL coaches, or 9 NFL openings. You're hearing Saban's name tossed around anywhere. It's all speculation. You don't have any inside information, I'm sure, because nobody knows. But does he give up what he's got at Alabama and go to the NFL, or does he just stay where he's at and says, I'm going to create my legacy here?
I mean, I have to believe he's going to stay at Alabama and continue on creating a legacy that he started. And, he already had a little run in the NFL. And look, the reason Coach Bryant never went to the NFL, one of the reasons, was because he knew he couldn't treat the players in the NFL like he could treat college kids. In other words, he couldn't create the fear.
That's how Knight was too. Yeah.
Yeah, you can't create the fear factor in the pros that you can with a college kid. So a lot of what Coach Saban does is based on fear and respect. And a lot of what Coach Bryant did, almost all, was created because of respect or fear and respect. They're just some guys they're college coaches, and I just think Saban is a college coach. I thought Coach Bryant was a college coach. And I think Saban had enough of the NFL in a very short stint to know that, you know what, I'd rather go coach these young guys. I think he enjoys the challenge of coaching the young guys up and being able to teach them and make them better players, as opposed to going to the NFL and the players are making more money than he is. So, plus it's a family thing. I think his family's pretty entrenched in Tuscaloosa. I think his wife is too, and from what I understand. So I don't think we'll see him go back to the NFL, although I did hear Kirby Smart was being considered for an NFL job today.
Well, the way he manages the clock and coaches, he could coach the Bengals.
Yeah.
Alabama's pretty close to Talladega, isn't it?
Oh, here we go to NASCAR.
Well, not too far.
Oh, see, now we got NASCAR, man. How can you give up NASCAR? That's the greatest racetrack in the world.
Bill, do you like NASCAR?
I do not. I'm sorry, I don't.
Thank you, Bill. Bill's a grown man. He doesn't play childish games.
I'm done.
Grizzly.
I'm hanging up.
Brian, do you like NASCAR?
Not really, no.
All right.
Jesus, I'm on my own. One man is an island once again.
Well, it's kind of like the ratings for NASCAR. You watch, nobody else cares.
Bill, I'll tell you one thing that I got some advice with Bob Knight, and I'm sure it applies to Brian and to Saban, is I got some great advice from Kent Benson, who was a center on the 76 undefeated team. He's considered one of the greatest college basketball teams of all time. He said, don't listen to how your coach delivers information. Listen to what he tells you.
Yeah.
And if you can get over how he delivers it, you'll be successful for the rest of your life. But if you get hung up on how he says it to you, you'll fail because you'll never get past, you'll never learn from him. You'll only hate him because of the way he's talking to you.
And I think that
was advice I got,
That's absolutely the same thing you would say about Saban and Coach Bryant.
Yeah.
Don't worry about how they deliver it.
You know what would be a good show someday at noon Eastern would be a Risley and Searcy talking about Bob Knight and Bear Bryant.
We just did that.
Be interesting.
No, we didn't just do that. You're such a moron. All right.
I think what you would find is there'd be an incredible amount of similarities between those guys, and that's why they're successful coaches at the college level. And the talks about using fear and discipline and things like that. Some people looked at it as fear at Alabama or Indiana. Some people look at it as discipline or an opportunity.
Well, see,
you have two choices to make: either something's a tragedy or not, or it's a journey.
Hey,
so,
we got Brian Schmidt on the line, and he coaches through fear because if I remember right, he walks with a cane, but he doesn't need it, but he has it just in case he needs to hit a player. Correct, Brian?
And I just had a chair.
Well, that is true.
Because when I coached with Brian, most of my time was just trying to keep Brian calm because he was throwing stuff, hitting people with sticks and everything else.
Oh, and you were the calm.
Oh yeah,
Mike, what was your stick? What did you coach with? Obviously not intelligence.
No, not intelligence. I just chilled and watched Brian get mad and hit people with stuff.
Good Lord, I really hope you don't get struck down by lightning.
Because Brian, most of the time, I was trying to keep him from screaming at the officials because I'm the kind of guy that knows officials are doing the best job they possibly can.
Oh, please.
And I really don't want to yell at a family man like that.
Oh, my God.
Wow, I'm really glad we're not in the same room because I really don't want to get struck by lightning.
What?
I
thought you knew I hadn't taken a shower yet today.
Every day. Yeah.
What was that?
I have to deal with you every day, so just finish it up.
Me and Brian used to live together in a small house in Owensboro.
I got to go watch the Golden. I'm in Hollywood. I've got to go watch the Golden Globe Awards. Come on.
Why? Are you
because
really turning into a liberal?
No, not. We're not getting into politics.
All right.
I'm going for Alabama by 2 touchdowns.
Well, Bill, I hate to tell you this, but the history of this show has been this. He picked Villanova to lose to Michigan in the basketball championship. He was wrong. He actually picked the Cavaliers to beat Golden State. He was wrong. He picked the Dodgers to beat the Red Sox in the World Series. He was wrong. And then he picked Notre Dame to beat Clemson.
And here's your fear, Mike. One of these times I'm going to get it right. One of these times I'm going to get it right, and I'm going to get it right tomorrow night.
And then you'll be 1-5. That's pretty good.
That's okay.
That's what the Colts record was before they made the run to the playoffs. I knew that was coming.
That's how the Colts started the season, and they're still in the playoffs.
All right.
Didn't I tell you in the beginning of this that Mike just likes to stir it up, and he loves stirring it up, especially against Alabama.
I know.
Against Alabama? Oh, come on. You know what? You said that. But the last time we made a pick like this, I was right.
You were right. I know. I'm just playing.
And if you remember last year when Alabama played Clemson, I didn't pick Clemson. I picked Alabama, and I was right.
Yep, you did.
So
you were right.
There you go. So I just honestly, I think Clemson might win the game.
All right. So they might. They're going to play, so they do have a chance.
Well, this is the thing, though. If I was picking Alabama, it would be they might. I think this is that close of a matchup.
All right, so let me ask you a question before we finish.
Okay.
Do you think at the SEC Championship, because I know you watched it, do you think at that time those were the 2 best teams in college football this year?
No.
Alabama, Georgia.
No, and
you still think Clemson?
The reason I don't is this. Clemson is coached by Dabo Swinney.
Okay.
In the end, if Clemson plays Georgia, I think Dabo Swinney is the difference. I think a head coach in football is the most influential man in any sport because you can kind of control what happens a little bit at least. Where baseball, basketball, you can't. Basketball, if you're Casey Jones and you got Larry Bird, you're going to win a lot of games. Doesn't mean you're a great coach. It just means you got Larry Bird. But I think the difference between Georgia and Clemson is Dabo Swinney. And in the end, I think that's a huge difference. I think we don't really know how good Clemson is yet because they have not played a really, really good team. I mean, it's not a shot at Notre Dame. I think Notre Dame is a good team. I think they're probably somewhere between 10 and 15 in the country. Georgia, I've seen play Alabama. Now, I don't think Georgia or Alabama's really played great competition because I don't think there's really any depth in any conference in college football this year.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think LSU is a great football team. And I'll tell you this, I don't hold it against Central Florida that they lost to LSU because still, it's an exhibition game. I think last year, UCF-Auburn was for UCF to get respect. I think they already had it this year. So I think you're probably a little let down that for 2 straight years you're undefeated and you don't get a chance to prove anything. So That's why the bowl system is stupid. Any team that goes undefeated for 2 years, I don't care who they're playing, deserves an opportunity. That's who should have been in over Notre Dame, in my opinion. Georgia had the opportunity. They had the game won, and they blew it.
They blew it, yep.
So at least give UCF the opportunity because they never got it. Just my opinion. Georgia had a chance, they blew it. Ohio State had a chance, and they got beat by 30 by a Purdue team that got beat like 3,000 to 14 by Auburn. So
yeah.
And Auburn is a decent football team, but they're nowhere near a great football team. All right, guys, we're going to wrap the show up for tonight. Tomorrow, Anthony Savino will be with us to talk about the past weekend of college football, or of NFL playoffs. So Steve can gloat about the Colts, and Anthony can gloat about his Cowboys.
Anthony can gloat about the Cowboys.
Yeah.
So, and we can always talk about the Bungles.
I'll just be made fun of.
Hire Hugh Jackson.
Yeah,
Hugh Jackson as their coach. So that's a good move.
Okay. Whatever. At least my team plays outside like men, unlike your team. Plays indoors. Play where it's 72 degrees, you sissy. All right, guys, we're going to wrap the show up. I want to remind everybody you can hear all of our shows on Spotify, iHeartRadio, iTunes, TuneIn, Spreaker, Stitcher. Wherever you find sports podcasts, you'll find The Grueling Truth. So for Brian Schmidt, Bill Searcy, Steve Risley, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening to The Grueling Truth, where Steve Risley's never right. All right.